and welcome back to another episode of Over the Glass. I am your host, Jay, and your other two hosts are busy this week. So normally we wouldn't really accord with one host, but it's been a really exceptional, special week for the Sharks franchise, and I've been talking it up since Tuesday, and I still have thoughts about it. And what better way to get it off my chest and maybe exhaust myself? I don't know if that's possible since we haven't officially drafted with our first overall pick, but we'll give it a try and we'll see what happens. So like I said, the Sharks in franchise history got the first overall pick in the draft lottery. What an exciting Tuesday. And by the time they got to the third overall pick, pretty much I was just in a zone of, oh my God, it's going to happen. And what if we don't get it? Like, I have not prepared for if we don't get the first overall pick. Like, it could be a really exciting evening, or we could be really devastated if the Hawks get the first overall again. But the Hawks didn't, and the Sharks did, and oh my God, words cannot even describe. I was just so happy. I was texting people. I was looking all over social media, just taking in everybody's excitement for this day. It like, I don't even think we can like fully grasp how exciting this is for our franchise. And like, we haven't even used the pick yet. Obviously, every outlet is saying Macklin Celebrini is going to go first overall in this draft. I mean, he was there at the lottery draft. And so how can you not think it's going to be him? But of course, they're very particular about how they word things, like if the Sharks take you, the presumed first overall pick. We've talked about it on this podcast about how he spent one season with the junior Sharks and how that just really gets us excited that like he has this connection to the Bay already. I do want to note that, yes, he is from Vancouver. He grew up there up until he was like a preteen because his dad, Rick Celebrini, he got this job out here to be the director of sports medicine and performance for the Golden State Warriors. So that's why he spent the one season with the junior Sharks. And then from there, he moved on to further his development out in like the Midwest. And then this past season, he finished his freshman year at Boston University. It just felt destined, if we could use that word, that this would be the season that through all our hardships as we've begun this rebuild, that we would have this chance to select a kid who could have these ties with the Bay and to start the next chapter of our journey. He's the youngest player to win the Hobie Baker Award. And he's kind of like mentioned how throughout his time playing hockey, he's always kind of played up. So if you've ever been in a situation where you've had the opportunity to play with folks who are a couple of years older than you or like in the next tier, I feel like if you've got the right mindset and you have the right like discipline, it can only make you better. And then obviously, as long as like the atmosphere is very positive and they're there to help you and things like that. In terms of like his dad working for the Golden State Warriors, what I grasp from that is just he sees the level of dedication and the work ethic that's required if he really, wants to become a pro. And so he just had all this great influence in these short little bits that I've been able to see. Like, I just really like his overall composure. He seems very mature for his age, and I think that's going to really help him to be in this situation where he's going to come into a franchise, potentially the Sharks. Like, we have so much room for young guys to step in and take on a big role. But then it's like that balance of it is one of the things that I'm probably the most concerned about throughout this rebuild. And like, we've heard it through other outlets, especially that platform. I don't remember the name of the podcast, but like Shang and Keegan from San Jose Hockey Now had them on some time ago because they had a very polarizing opinion of the Sharks rebuild. And one of the things that they had mentioned was, how they feel like the Sharks are going to cause these young kids to have to take on too much of a role with lack of veteran presence, and they push them into the league too soon and things like that. And while that is like a valid concern at this current time, I don't see that happening. So I kind of felt like, why are you thinking that they're doing that? Like, we obviously this past season we have surrounded them with veteran presence. They may not be ones that are kind of like a Sidney Crosby that you can talk up about and all these things about, and you feel like that would be the ideal situation. So all the previous episodes, there was like a whole month where we were ranting about all this stuff, and but not to get too off topic, I just feel like it's going back to what I said about Macklin and his development and how he seems very mature for his age. Like, I think that's going to work out really well for him if what I'm seeing in first impressions is that. So moving on to another part of what makes me so excited about the Sharks having this opportunity to select Macklin Celebrini with the first overall pick that we acquired in this past draft lottery, is the connections with the Bay, which I've already kind of given an overview about it. His dad working for the Golden State Warriors. If you're not familiar with the Bay, we have all these great sports teams. Like, it's a wonderful area if you are interested in all kinds of sports. Like, everything is here. Like, we're getting a freaking WNBA team next season. Like, the AFC started this current season with the National Women's Soccer League. Like, all this great stuff. But to be a hockey fan in this area, like, I mean, I've been a fan of the Sharks since like the mid 90s, and throughout that time, like the fan base has grown in a sense where obviously the hockey community, like people who play in league, and the fact that we had to add like 2 extra sheets of ice at the Sharks practice facility, which now equals to 6 sheets of ice, and like even that is like been long overdue, and they have no shortage of interest. But even then, we're still this small fish in a huge pond in relation to when people think about hockey locations in the US. I'm pretty sure California doesn't really come to mind as one of the top places to be. People in this area, there's still so much interest in like baseball, basketball, football. And to this day, like, I'm still introducing people to hockey. I kind of see us taking Celebrini, and his dad is so connected with the Warriors. Like, he had a press conference, I believe, exclusively so he could be asked about his son being presumed first overall pick, and the fact that the Sharks got the first overall pick. Like I don't recall a time when another sports outlet, much less another sports team outside of the Bay Area Unite nights or whatever, where they do a little mashup and things like that. Like, I don't recall seeing that. Maybe it happened when we got the second overall that we took Patrick Marleau, but I mean, times were different then. There wasn't any social media, and I was quite young, so I have no idea. I'm kind of seeing this as a great opportunity for the Bay to finally unite it like in a beneficial way for Sharks hockey to grow even more, because the Warriors are asking their staff member, the dad of this kid that is a really high prospect in the highest level of hockey in the entire world. And then we know from last season, there was that clip that was going around for Draymond Green. He was getting some work done with Rick Celebrini, and he started asking him about his son Macklin. They had a game in Chicago coming up, and he had asked him, is Macklin having a game? Like, to me, that was such a great feel good, out of nowhere story, but it just really kind of helped, like, this hype of yes, let's get him, because can you imagine if we do get him, like, maybe we'll get Warriors players to actually show up, at a Sharks game. Maybe they'll talk about the Sharks in their circles more, and maybe we'll get more interest, throughout the Bay, to get more hockey fans, all this good stuff. And I saw that there's this show, I don't know, it's 95.7 with Steiny and Guru. Maybe some of our listeners know what I'm talking about. They look like they cover majority Warriors, but obviously they're in the Bay Area, and they were even talking about it, and I'm like, what? That's cool. Their listeners are probably basketball fans, being like, what are you guys talking about? Who's this Macklin guy? Like, and maybe they'll go and take a look, and maybe they'll get hyped up about the Sharks, because as we know, with this rebuild, the attendance for the Shark Tank has not been great. It's been higher when it's like a giveaway, or maybe depending on the opponent, there's a lot of transplants from other areas, so you'll get their fans coming in and wanting to watch their team for like dirt cheap tickets. This would just be really nice for the Bay, not only for Sharks fans to come back and be interested in the team, but also get interest from these other sports teams and their fans throughout the Bay. And then outside of the Bay Area, I was also seeing stuff on like TSN and Elliot Friedman on his 32 Thoughts. Like, people were talking about the aftermath of the draft lottery. Obviously, they have to talk about the Sharks because the Sharks got the first overall. And it was just really nice to be able to drive to work or drive anywhere and listen to a podcast or listen to folks talk about the Sharks that, don't usually talk about the Sharks, but have been talking about the Sharks, because it's kind of hard to ignore us when we're so terrible. But it's been so nice to hear positive things about the Sharks and hopeful things from their perspective from the Sharks, and how it seems like people are generally happy that the Sharks got the first overall pick. And that's nice. That's nice. That's great to feel, great to hear about it. There's probably some franchises that didn't want us to get it, but too bad. So it's been a very nice week for Sharks fans. And then, as I mentioned previously, we're ranked 4th overall as of late February on the Athletic for prospect pool. So that's been really cool to see. The San Jose Hockey Now reported that, according to the San Jose Sharks spokesman, as of Friday, just 3 days after winning the first overall pick in the 2024 Draft Lottery, the Sharks had sold more full season ticket packages 10 days into May than they did during the entire month last year. So there's interest. There is hype that the Sharks are going to be watchable again. And more butts will start filling in these seats because we definitely needed it. We needed this opportunity to get someone who could really be the face amongst the other great prospects that we have to get people talking about this team again. So that's great to see. So what I'm actually most interested in, now that we've kind of gotten that out of the way, like, had we gotten the 2nd overall pick, then we'd probably be talking about that and wondering, well, what do we do now that Celebrini is most likely not in our cards, right? There's a lot of talk about who the Sharks are going to take 14th overall. Like, I've been kind of just like going around trying to find information about that too, and I keep seeing people talking about like Cole Eiserman. Like, he's been all over the place on different like mock drafts, and then weighing out the pros and cons of taking another forward, or do you try to take a defenseman with that 14th overall. Like, personally, I'm leaning towards a defenseman. I just think, in this talk of all these forwards and how it's all really great and stuff, it would be nice to have another high-end defenseman, because from that prospect pool, our highest toted defenseman in our pool right now is Shakir Mukhamadullin, which I'm definitely looking forward to him, but it'd be nice if we kind of have someone else to kind of like balance him out and like not have us put all of our, hopes and dreams onto Shakir Mukhamadulin's shoulders. It would be nice if we could have another guy to eventually come in through the pipeline and help us out there. So I've been also seeing that people are talking about like Adam Jurasek being in that area of maybe he's available by the time the Sharks have the opportunity to pick. Like, there's all these other defensemen that look like they're going to be picked much sooner. But it'll be interesting to see if maybe these other teams go in a different direction and maybe one of these other defensemen that are maybe ranked higher fall to us. I don't know. We'll see. Like, personally, I have just been slowly falling in love with Zane Parik. If you have not heard about him yet, he's the top scoring defenseman in the OHL this past season with the Saginaw Spirit. He's the 8th overall in scoring in the OHL. He played 66 games and got 96 points. And he's of Indian and Korean descent, which we love diversity on this podcast. So I'm here for it. Go look him up on YouTube. There's this great story, I believe it was like on TSN or whatever, that they covered it. It's just like different sides of hearing about his story from his mom's side, his dad's side, all the way down to like the grandparents. It's really lovely. It's we need more stories like that. We need more of this type of diversity in our sport. So I'm personally rooting for him. If we don't have the opportunity to get him, or maybe he's not even like, the scouts don't care or whatever. I just kind of hope he goes to a team that I can like tolerate and root for him. Yeah, so I'm here to say kind of, get hype for the Sharks. I mean, I know that like there's been talks about whether Will Smith is going to come in this upcoming season, or if he's going to spend another season with BC. There's also kind of that talk with Celebrini, but when you put the two of them together and talk about it, there seems to be more chatter of the likelihood that Celebrini does not go back to BU next year, and people have been saying he looks pretty much NHL ready. Makes me a little nervous, but we're gonna kind of trust the process, and ultimately we're also gonna trust in Greer and his staff and what they decide to do, and hopefully they're being given a decent amount of wiggle room to not push our youngins to carry the ship towards a winning culture again before they're ready. So those are a lot of the question marks with these guys. There's some talk about the pros and cons from this past season where, obviously Will Smith spent his freshman year over at BC, but the three picks that went before him, Connor Bedard, Fantilli, Carlson. I mean, I think Bedard, there was just like no way he was like not going to be in the NHL. Like, but regardless of that, the Hawks had a really terrible season. And, like, I'm sure it benefited Chicago to have Bedard, and like people, how we'd imagine might happen with if we were to pick Celebrini with the first overall, like as I've written it, mentioned with the ticket sales, the Sharks are already getting interest just in general, with like we haven't even picked yet and people are already interested. So like I can see the pros in having Bedard and getting people back into the arena, even though they had the second worst record and everyone else around Bedard was just kind of along for the ride and kind of trying to help out where they can. But overall, like the team is not really built to go really anywhere. It's just there to support Bedard. So take that as you will, pros and cons with that. But with Fantilli and Carlson, I know with I think it was with Carlson or maybe with both of them, they were trying to kind of ease their ice time. I think ultimately Fantilli and Carlson, their seasons ended early with injuries. So, that's a risk that you're kind of taking to bring them in and trying to find that like balance to like, so they don't find themselves in a situation where they're getting injured. So these are just kind of like things that I'm sure Greer and, everyone else involved is going to think about. And, obviously when they sit down with Will Smith and then presumably Macklin Celebrini, they're going to talk about all this types of stuff. And then they're hopefully going to find a good middle ground where there's a good relationship between the prospects and the organization, and we do what's best for both parties. Because next season, regardless if they're in the lineup or not, we're still going to be terrible. So hopefully we're not going to be as terrible as this past season, because I know it's just been really hard at times to watch, but The light is at the end of the tunnel. It's coming. And hopefully we'll see better days sooner rather than later. So if they aren't in the lineup next season, that's fine. I'm really excited for all these great things coming for the team. Can't wait for the draft coming up in about 6 weeks. It's going to be really exciting. And in conclusion, I'm going to say once again, get excited for this franchise. We are turning a corner. We're on to bigger and better things, and it's going to be really exciting to talk all about it. So, as always, I'm your host, Jay. Thank you for joining us. If you like our podcast, you like what we talk about, please give us a subscribe, follow us on socials, leave a review, like the video if you're watching this on YouTube, and we'll catch you later. Thanks.